We do Future Proof Masterclass every single month, and we always have an amazing guest expert on things that allow you to future-proof your career and your life. Sometimes they're really pie in the sky, like how to hack happiness, and sometimes they're super practical. Often our best attended ones are super practical, like leveraging LinkedIn to scale your platform. So Saleema is amazing. We were on a panel together talking about the future of work last year, and I said, you need to speak to my community. So she is both. She has an amazing book that is coming out as we speak, pretty much, and it is called Innovation Starts with I. She's an award-winning serial entrepreneur, speaker, professor, and she has a company called Ripple Impact, which educates, advises, and connects entrepreneurs seeking to increase influence and maximize their impact. And she also teaches design thinking and entrepreneurship at Johns Hopkins, as well as lecturing at several business schools. So she's completely amazing. And one of the things that we talked about is, should we go practical or should we go big and lofty, save the world? Because she can do both equally well. And she said, let's go practical. So, and I love that because I want to learn too from this. So I'm super excited. We will pop her book links into the chat, and she will go through her leveraging LinkedIn. We'll leave 15 minutes for questions. And this is particularly good for those of you who are thinking about starting a new side gig or reinventing, or founders. But I think it'll be useful for everyone. And my favorite quote from Saleema is, innovation is an accelerated journey of personal transformation. So at least you can transform your LinkedIn profile. I can't guarantee personal transformation in the next 55 minutes, but we'll try. Over to you, Saleema.
Thank you so much, Diana, and welcome everyone. It's really an honor to be here today. We're going to cover a lot. So I just want to say, if there are any moments where you feel overwhelmed, I guess this is being recorded, so you can always refer back to it, and feel free to ask any questions, pop them in the chat. I prefer to take them towards the end, so we'll do a short Q&A towards the end, but I will be watching your questions, and if it makes sense to answer, I'll answer them on the spot. So thanks everyone, and keep putting where you're from in the chat. It's great to see so many international folks here. I just want to confirm, can everyone hear me, see me, and see my screen okay? Yep, perfect. All right, awesome. So today we're going to talk about leveraging LinkedIn and how you can use it to scale your platform. I understand a lot of you here are either trying to build an audience, you're curious, some of you are trying to get on boards, some are in the process of reinventing or making a pivot, and some are just, well, how can I do better with my LinkedIn profile and get more traction on LinkedIn. And the reason why I thought this would be particularly useful in terms of future proofing is because LinkedIn is such a great platform to position yourself, especially since we are living in a very predominantly virtual world right now. And so how you position yourself on LinkedIn, it's that first impression, and it's so key to have a strong LinkedIn profile, but also because it's one of the best platforms right now, which we're going to talk about that shortly. So just a really brief introduction. As Diana said, I wear multiple hats. I call myself a hybridpreneur. And I'm an innovation strategist. I work with a bunch of different organizations, primarily right now with, just part-time consulting for the World Bank, and helping them with how do we solve food insecurity in Africa and the Middle East, especially with refugees and displaced people or conflict-affected countries, using climate-smart technologies like hydroponics, aquaponics, looking at insect farming right now, publishing something next month on the circular economy and hydroponics. And so that's been sort of my, my passion and having feet on the ground sort of work in the developing world. I'm also, yes, the author of Innovation Starts with I, so launching this book, this baby, November 1st. So that's been a big deal, I guess, for the past year. Been really busy trying to get ready for this launch. I do a lot of keynote speaking, so that's all the bigger idea stuff. But again, we're going to focus on practical today. I am the founder. It's my 9th venture, Ripple Impact. And so helping a lot of entrepreneurs grow their platforms and grow their businesses, being the team behind the scenes. So we do a lot of strategy, giving advice, helping design, and helping them execute to improve their marketing, their branding, and their business so they can grow and ultimately future-proof themselves. And then I also teach. I teach social entrepreneurship to underserved high school students, as well as I teach at Johns Hopkins, design thinking and entrepreneurship. So it's an adjunct. So a little bit about me. What we're going to cover today briefly is 2020 LinkedIn trends, how to craft your unique strategy on LinkedIn, creating a killer profile, developing really good content that works with the algorithm, and then building systems for scale. So we are covering quite a bit. This is actually a slightly shorter version of a course that I created for entrepreneurs in the accelerator, and it's my first time presenting all of it. I usually just do one module, but I'm trying to cover as much as possible so you can get the most out of it. And then we'll be doing Q&A. So why LinkedIn and why right now? So it is the hottest platform right now, as I mentioned, and you do get the highest ROI from it, especially for service-based entrepreneurs, consultants, authors, speakers, coaches, thought leaders, if you use it well. So, as I always say this, if you start building your audience earlier and strategically, you'll attract opportunities that will accelerate you towards the vision of where you want to be. So towards where you're trying to reposition yourself. So I always say it's better to reposition yourself further along than you actually are, so you can attract those opportunities and connections that will pull you further towards that. And what I mean by that is when I became, for me, I got onto LinkedIn, or I really, I've been on LinkedIn for over a decade now, but I really got serious about it when I decided I was going to become an author a couple of years ago. And I said, well, this is, a big deal. I need to have a platform. And LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook had all moved to like paid advertising, and it was really hard to build an audience there. And LinkedIn was where my audience was. And so, for anyone that's working with, like service-based entrepreneur, it's an excellent platform. It does take time and practice. It does take some testing, and you have to figure out how to best position yourself and develop your sweet spot on LinkedIn to get that traction. So when I started all of this, actually in 2017, I started being more active on LinkedIn. And as you see, I didn't really get a lot of traction. I get like maybe 1 like or 2 likes, or it was really hard. I was trying all kinds of stuff and had not much success. Then I tried again in 2018. I was like, well, let me post an article. I started writing about design thinking, and it was earlier, my design thinking career, and I was like, well, let me share a little bit more about this. And interestingly, as you see, I was sharing, podcasts. I was sharing all kinds of stuff I was on, and 0 or like, a few likes here and there, no engagement. It was a lot of work and not much impact. Then when I decided to become an author, and I decided, I need to be more vulnerable after getting feedback to share more vulnerable things, and not just sort of design thinking, innovation, thought leadership stuff, but really share stuff that, is slightly uncomfortable to me. I started sharing, things that people were asking me about, like, how did you become a speaker at Inbound? And I was like, well, instead of writing a long email response, let me just turn it into a blog post. And surprisingly, it got a lot of views, and I was very surprised, because I was also like, well, I don't want to be known as like a marketing expert or whatever. I want to, be known for design thinking. But surprisingly, people were more interested in that sort of juicy behind the scenes content that is non-obvious, right? I couldn't find this information on Google on how to become a speaker at Inbound. It took a lot of rejection and helping other people get there for me to do that for myself and then be able to tell my story. So then I started getting more traction in 2019. And then in 2020, I'd already figured it out, and I already had started, I went from like 2,000 to like 12,000 connections, and used LinkedIn to run a successful crowdfunding campaign, and reached out to a lot of my connections. And we were able to raise over $50,000 for my book project, and mostly because of LinkedIn. And so there's a lot you can benefit or leverage on LinkedIn. And then, just engaging with all the people that we were in touch with. And as you see, the views went up to, now we were getting like, 6,000 to like 10,000, and sometimes even 30,000 views. Sharing more authentic content, again, started getting better at it. The views went up. Now I get, a lot more views because my platform has grown, and I figured it out even more, like what my audience really wants. And now I get, in the tens of thousands of views oftentimes. And it's a lot of, figuring it out and testing. And so, over the course of the last couple of years, I managed to grow from like 2,000 connections to over 22,000 connections, doing things strategically. I've gotten over 250 speaking engagements, been on lots of podcasts, contributed, have like editors reach out sometimes. Can we quote you in an article? Invites to radio shows. I actually was a conference chair once, and honestly, LinkedIn brings about 95% of our business at Ripple Impact, and a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of things. And so I just think that I just feel like I really want to help other people that are trying to also grow their platform and grow their business, because LinkedIn is honestly the best thing. I don't know what we would do without it. So LinkedIn, for me, I think it's a place for conversations and community. And I also consider it an idea incubator. So a lot of the things that I've sort of developed over the past couple of years have been testing on LinkedIn. And because you can get those analytics, you can kind of see how people respond to stuff. And again, once you know how to use certain formulas or work with the algorithm, you can also use LinkedIn to figure out, like, if you're trying to figure out what's your micro niche for your next business, or you're trying to figure out who exactly is your audience. LinkedIn is great to figure that out and throw ideas around. So the first thing to think about when you're trying to work on LinkedIn is, what are your goals? So are you trying to build credibility? Are you trying to get more clients for your business? Are you trying to get speaking or media opportunities? Are you trying to collaborate with other people and like network with other people? Or what are your goals? And I think really knowing your goals, sure, they will change over time. For me, it definitely has changed. Every few months, I might have a different goal with LinkedIn, but it's important to know what that goal is so you can develop your strategy accordingly. And so just to go over the trends really quickly so you get an idea of what's going on right now. The LinkedIn algorithm has 3 primary goals. So the first one is to share relevant content, promoting engagement, and fostering interaction with personal connections. So you might have seen a few years ago, LinkedIn would show you a lot of stuff from second and third connections. And now you're probably seeing your newsfeed is mostly people that you're already connected to. So they're trying to bring people closer together versus trying to just build, connect people that are quite far from each other. But they're also not, promoting as much influencer content. They've changed more so that people can build more community and have conversations with the people they're connected to. What's getting old on LinkedIn? So articles, they're not, for what you get out of them, they're really hard to nail. Sometimes if you write a really authentic post and you have, you share it really well, you promote it really well with your network outside of LinkedIn as well, take people, target people so that they go to LinkedIn and go to your posts, like from your email newsletter or wherever else. So you have a really good graphic that can do really well. And we've seen some articles go viral, but generally it's pretty hard to get that unless you nail a bunch of factors. And so it's been pretty hard. Articles, I think in 2015 they launched, and so they were really, really good back in the earlier days, but now you don't get as much traction for the amount of work you might put into an article. That being said, it's always great to have 2 or 3 articles on your profile. It does help to have 2 or 3, but I wouldn't try to build your whole blog on LinkedIn today, because it's not going to, and also it doesn't have the same credibility as publishing on Forbes or other, media, which now it's getting easier to, with the new pay for publishing models that a lot of media has, or you can pitch to other media. It's better to, I would say, go to other platforms to put out your thought leadership. The groups also gotten old. Years ago, they did really well. There are some groups that are really active and they do well, but they're usually very niche. But groups, LinkedIn doesn't really focus as much on that. It's kind of like Facebook communities, but Facebook communities are still very active generally. And Facebook does a lot with the notifications, but you probably don't get a lot of notifications from groups that you joined. LinkedIn has sort of moved away from that. Videos also, LinkedIn went really big with videos a few years ago. Back in like 2018, 2019-ish, really did really well, but now they're not going as viral. So you can get, some views here and there, but like they're not as viral as, I wouldn't put a lot of effort into making a video just for LinkedIn. If you have one anyways, like here, I shared, snippets from my TEDx talk, but for, the amount of work that it takes to put together video, the views aren't usually as great, unless, again, you do something that goes super viral and somehow you nail the algorithm, but generally it's pretty hard to get that. Follower count, follow buttons from posts, like that's also gone. We don't have that anymore. LinkedIn doesn't want people to just follow a bunch of people. They want people to connect with people they actually know or have a relationship with. So that's changed as well. And stories rolled out earlier this year, and they were sort of in a beta testing mode, and now stories are officially gone from LinkedIn. They were removed in September, so that didn't do as well. Obviously, that stayed on Instagram and Facebook, but for LinkedIn, it just didn't seem to be their thing. What's new or new-ish? So you can upload documents and posts. So if you have, a PDF or some, report or something that you want to share, you can always, a lot of people don't know you can actually upload a PDF to your post. There's carousel posts, so that's also quite interesting. We find that these don't get like a ton of traction, but if you want to share educational content or have sort of like a slides feel or flow to it, then you can do carousel posts. LinkedIn Live, you can apply. I'll give you a link towards the end. You can apply to, be a LinkedIn Live host, and you would need a third-party platform to use that. But a lot of people that, a lot of entrepreneurs that we work with, they've applied and gotten their applications approved. LinkedIn Live is not, it's tricky. Like I think they're trying to improve it still. Sometimes you'll see it on someone's profile if they have LinkedIn Live, and generally it's pretty tricky because like you kind of have to be connected to the person to be able to see the notification. It's really tricky. Like they don't really, it's not like you'll see a bunch of your contacts in your notifications when they have LinkedIn Live. So that one, I still feel like it's not very strong yet, but it might get there depending on what they do next. Newsletters, this is also something that rolled out over the past year, and a lot of people are finding success with that. I think if you have a platform and you're serious about growing your follower count, and you already have, at least 5 or 10,000 connections, starting a newsletter on LinkedIn or leveraging your email newsletter and repurposing it on LinkedIn, but keeping it into like more, bite-sized content. People have been finding some success with that. So I think newsletters are also great. And events had a lot of success with events so far. You don't always know if someone actually, will show up to the event, but it's a great way to promote an event and pique someone's interest and for them to share. So that's also a newer feature from over the past year and a half or so. And so now we're going to move into crafting your unique strategy on LinkedIn. So what do you need to do to succeed on LinkedIn? So I would say there's 3 main things. Having a kick-ass profile, so that's, first impression, having really good content, and building real relationships. And this is, oftentimes people will focus on one of these things. And this is why I'm doing this whole, we're covering a lot today, is because sometimes they just focus on how to do the content piece, but then people don't know the profile piece, or, they don't know how important it is. They'll focus on posting content, but the content posting is really just the beginning of, if you're thinking about the customer journey or the engagement journey, it's really just the beginning, but you want to move into conversations in those one-on-one messages, and then move off of LinkedIn to, keep those relationships going. So it's important that all these 3 pieces work together. And also defining, your audience in that process. So I always say there's like your primary audience and your secondary audience. And sorry, you can't see that one at the bottom, it's Twitter, but basically your primary audience is the group of people you feel most called to, and generally the group of people that you want to impact, you want to see transformation in. Think about, your clients. There's also your secondary audience, which are the group that your primary audience trusts. So this might be their employer, association, like a trade association that they're part of. And so the cool thing about LinkedIn is that it's different from other social media that generally will target just your primary audience. LinkedIn will also help you, raise your profile and build connections with your secondary audience. So an example of that is we get a lot of, entrepreneurs that are really organically interested in our accelerator at Ripple Impact. They come and they're like, well, how did you grow your platform? How did you get a TED Talk? How did you do this or become an author? And they'll message on LinkedIn. But what we'll also get in our inbox on LinkedIn, or sorry, my inbox, but my team manages a lot of this, is organizations. They'll reach out, hey, can you do a keynote virtually for my team or for my organization? And we'll get like lots of different opportunities just from the umbrellas where the primary audience is within. So I think that's the benefit of LinkedIn, is you have both those audiences as well as others. You might have more than 1 or 2 audiences. You might have multiple. And in that case, LinkedIn is awesome because it really helps keep your audience in touch with you, and you're on the radar just because of the way the LinkedIn algorithm works. So when we talk about crafting your unique strategy on LinkedIn, I just want to quickly go over the different types of things that you can do. So, I think in terms of prioritizing, a lot of people will spend time engaging on other people's posts. A lot of people will try to share their content. And I would say those are on the lower, low effort and low impact. I would put a lot of, effort in that, but some people will also spend a lot more effort trying to, do one-on-one conversations. They are important. But again, you want to be able to move them off LinkedIn. They might do AI tools, they might use Sales Navigator, but if they don't know how to use it well, they might not get a really big impact, and they might be spending a lot of time on it. Some people are part of engagement pods. I'm part of one as well on WhatsApp, part of this Ladies Leveraging LinkedIn group. If anyone wants a link to that, I'm happy to invite anyone from here. But basically, it's people are sort of like liking each other's posts and engaging on each other's posts, but sometimes you end up in a bubble. So we use it sometimes, but not all the time. But ultimately, the first 30 minutes or so, 30 to 60 minutes of engagement is super important when you're posting something. So some people join these pods so that they can get that initial boost, and that helps their post have a higher chance of going viral or just getting a lot of engagement. But I would say, yes, the most important thing is to have, a killer profile. It does not require as much effort once you set up your profile to be really, really good, but the impact is super high. Creating good content, it does take a little bit more work to do that, but also the impact super high. And then having, really good calls to action on your profile or in your posts, impact pretty high, and it doesn't take a lot of work to do that once you know the strategy. So just wanted to put this into context, because some people think, oh, I'm just going to like share a bunch of posts, or they'll like reshare other people's stuff and they don't see any engagement. They're like, why? And it's just, you don't understand the algorithm. And so it's good to understand how all this works. And I would say the solution is to have a hybrid strategy. I don't think you have to pick just one thing. I think you have to pick the things that not only you're probably good at, like if you're really good at writing content, then definitely you should be writing content. If you are really good at using Sales Navigator, then use that as well. And then testing and iterating and testing, constantly to get to that until you see there's traction happening. And so the first thing we're going to cover from those three areas that I mentioned earlier is creating a killer profile. So on a profile, I think, you want to communicate transparency and authenticity. You also want to, have your audience feel like they trust you. So you want to convey that as well. And you also want to have your unique LinkedIn identity. So you want to be memorable in some way and stand out. And I just want to say, we have different identities on different social media. So this is, Dolly Parton, this is like an interesting sort of way. I have something like this in my book that shows what I call the exponential self. And you have different identities on different platforms. And especially now that we're in a virtual world, who you are on Instagram is not who you might be on Facebook or Twitter or Tinder or LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn obviously is more professional than those other platforms. We're starting to see a little bit more authenticity behind the scenes, less professional stuff on LinkedIn, but ultimately it still is the most professional platform. And so, just knowing how I would just be careful of what you post on Instagram versus LinkedIn. So you don't want to just like post all the same thing on all the different social media channels. You want to be able to differentiate, figure out what needs to go on LinkedIn and how do I position it for LinkedIn versus other social media. Your profile also, it's a landing page. It's not a CV. A lot of people think that their LinkedIn is just their online resume, but you really, as a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a corporate leader, really think of this as a landing page to you and your business, especially if your business is centered around you, which I know a lot of you here are founders and thought leaders. And so that's where you want the profile to be a landing page. A landing page has calls to action. It has different parts to it. It is ultimately like a sales page. So you have to, think about how you want to sell yourself to your audience, and they'll only look at it. Their first impression matters. They'll only look at it for a few seconds, and they'll make a judgment, or some sort of decision on how they feel about you. So, as I said, first impression is so important. You want to have a really good cover or banner. Your profile photo also, make sure it's edited. You can put a circle around it, you can get creative with it, make sure it stands out in some way, having a really good headline and the summary piece, which is now called about. You want to keep your headline to have either a catchy sentence. So some people are like, I help leaders, so-and-so. You can have several titles. I prefer this one where, especially if you wear many hats like myself as a hybridpreneur, you separate it with, that line. You don't want to put your work status like open to work or whatever. I don't think that's the right place. LinkedIn has created a way to do the open to work. What solution are you providing? You can also do that. Or you can also put awards or wow factors, measurable results. And people are like 3 times TEDx speaker, Forbes 30 under 30. You can get creative with that. And so, so make sure that you really put effort into the headline. And again, position yourself towards where you are headed, not where you have been in the past necessarily. So think about that. What's important for your vision. The about section, you want to have, at least a couple of sentences that describe your mission, and then a body, what you do, how you do it. Again, think of it as a landing page, who you've worked with, your accomplishments, your impact, and then have a call to action at the bottom. So, whether it's contact info, you want people to book time on your calendar, you want, a form to fill out for speaking engagements or podcasts, your another social media handle where you're more active. Really think about your call to action strategically. Some people put in a lead magnet. So the only thing is that it's not like a linkable link. So people will have to copy paste that. So again, try to keep it into, bit.ly or a short link. So if you are putting a link, they can easily copy paste that. This is how I've done mine. This is how we do ours at Ripple Impact. For our entrepreneurs, we basically create these like snapshot bios, since most of them are hybridpreneurs and they wear different hats. So we try to get creative with the emojis and different titles. And, for me, I try to get people to either go to my website or get a lot of speaking requests there too. So it's easier if I just have people fill out the form, and oftentimes they do that. Usually they'll still send a message first, but at least they know that I'm a speaker. So that's where they can go and fill out the information. You also have the featured section. A lot of people don't take advantage of this. It's really cool. You don't want to put a ton of stuff. Some people will put like 20 things in there. Don't do that. Keep it to 2 to 3, max 5 things. And this is where you want to put the things that are like your, really unique, accomplishments, or an article, maybe a Forbes article that you've written, or, if you've done a TEDx, you want to put, or just content maybe that you've posted that has gone viral, or an article that went viral. So you want to put some stuff in your featured section, because that is still pretty close to the top of your profile, so people can scroll and look at that. For me, I also put my press kit there. It's really helpful for positioning. So, if they come approach me for a speaking request or something, since I put my press kit, I don't get as much of the, free engagements. I get a bit more of the paid engagements, because people then can vet, or they can sort of go through that before contacting. So if you are a speaker or an author, definitely put your press kit in there, as well as any other accomplishments that would help you. Professional experience, I don't think you have to, I don't agree with having to put all the details of your professional experience. I generally keep it to just, the titles, the organizations. Sometimes I'll put in some really tiny details, but for the most part, I keep it pretty simple, because I don't want people, it's not a CV. So you also want to be able to position it. A lot of people, when they apply for jobs, they have to scramble and try to fix their LinkedIn and all the details, because it's like, oh, I'm applying for like a different role. And then the LinkedIn keeps changing. I wouldn't worry about all of that. You can always attach, if you want to put your CV into your, into the featured section, or keep that for something more offline. But I would keep it pretty simple so people can scroll. And if you have, any boards you're on, any organizations or associations that you're part of, any sort of communities, try to put as much as possible that will show your credibility, so people can be wowed. So yeah, there's also, different calls to action that you can put in. So as I mentioned, lead magnets, phone number, and email address. People have different, goals. And so just thinking about that, but having calls to action throughout your profile are key, not just in your about section, but maybe you'll have something for when I was chairing a conference last year. I was interviewing Ariana Huffington, and I was also trying to promote the conference for the organization. I was like a association for HR leaders and international organizations. So I did put in the description, for more information, go to thisorganization.org, and explained a little bit about it. So you can get creative and change up the calls to action. You also want to, manually put in some of your skills. LinkedIn will automatically pick them for you initially. So if you don't list some of those skills yourself, people might just be endorsing skills from, your skills from 10 years ago that you may not want to be known for. For example, for me, I had international development and international relations, because that's my training, my classically trained background, and what a lot of my classmates also knew me for. So that started growing, but now I'm like, well, I don't want to be known just for that anymore. So I had to manually add like speaking and some other ones. So you want to take a look at that as well, to make sure that you have the right skills in there, because some people will be looking and trying to endorse your profile, and they'll go for the ones that have the most likes often, or the most endorsements. So there's also the recommendation section. It's good to have at least, 3 to 5 recommendations. If you don't have any yet, try not to get them all around the same time. Some people, when they're starting their business, they're like, oh, well, let me just get like, a bunch of clients, like 10 to 20 clients to give me a recommendation. I think it's great if you wear different hats. Like I try to get them from different places, for speaking, for innovation work, for, just different things. And so try to diversify it a little bit. Also be aware of who you're asking the recommendation from, because obviously people might vet and do their due diligence and be like, well, who is writing this? And so, so just being, just thinking about who you want that recommendation from is important. And also seeing how many recommendations have they given, because sometimes people see that people are just giving a ton of recommendations. So just be wary of that. I also want to say that when you're doing, like, this is not really relevant to this specifically, but when you are, doing speaking engagements, and let's just say that an easy way to get a recommendation is, for sometimes you'll get those unpaid gigs that might be strategic in some way, but they're not going to pay. So one of the things in, your speaker negotiation questionnaire, if you have one, we have one as well as a template if you want one, but, we have a question there, like, are you, or in the speaker request form, are you willing to give a LinkedIn testimonial? And so we just get all that information from the beginning. And so we know to ask for that recommendation sometimes if they said, yes, we'll give you a recommendation, and it's especially if it's an unpaid gig. So that's a great way to rack up some of the recommendations, is leveraging some of those pro bono opportunities. You also want to go ahead and just, optimize your profile. So give it a facelift. We also offer that at Ripple Impact. We do LinkedIn facelifts for, our entrepreneurs. And so if you want any information about that, I'm happy to share, or you can go to rippleimpact.co. We have something in our shop about that. But a lot of this you can do yourself. If you don't have all the skills on the design or, the content and stuff, then there are people that offer that. So think about what makes most sense, but a lot of it, if you're good at writing and you have some of these pieces already, it's pretty easy once you know all these different strategies. The next thing I'm going to go into is developing epic content. So there's 8 different types of LinkedIn posts. This is what I've identified after analyzing all my failure and where I had success, and I came up with these 8 different types. And so there's resourceful content, there's humble brag, there's educational, promotional, behind the scenes, trending, storytelling, and inspiring. I'll dive a little bit deeper into these. So the first one is resourceful. You want to have a mix of these different types. So resourceful is what I find people really, really like. As you see here, when the pandemic happened, I ended up posting. I saw that someone else had posted that had a lot of influence, and he posted a bunch of different jobs. And so I went to Nick Martin's post, and I copied and pasted and kind of like rewrote some of it. And I ended up, citing him, because I knew that just sharing directly from him wouldn't give me much traction, because I mentioned sharing doesn't do as much for you these days. So I went and rewrote the post as a fresh, native post. And, and I gave him the acknowledgement, since this was his work that he did to put these jobs together. And it was, collaborating, and I kind of put a hook to it and changed it up a little bit, so it had my spin on it. And it went pretty viral. A lot of people thanked me. They started sharing it. They were thanking me like, oh, this came at the right time. I got laid off, and these are great. And so it ended up leading to a lot of new relationships being built, and just a lot of views, as you see. Humble brag is another type of post, and this is where you want to be graceful. This, as you can see, this was, I think, one of my last speaking engagements. I think this was February 2020 in Orlando. And the reason I think this one did well was I had tagged an organization that, for some reason, maybe a couple people or one person in that organization had a lot of influence or a big platform. Whatever happened in the algorithm, it went pretty viral. It got over 30,000 views. And 324 likes and all these comments, and I just somehow hit some sweet spot with the way I posted it. Maybe it was the timing. I think it was a Saturday. I was just like, let's try this out. And I think it was also because of the graphics. Those photos were taken professionally, so they were edited, and I think that also helped with getting that traction on people's newsfeed. So humble brag, you want to be authentic about it, but not just be like, oh, it was an honor to speak at this event. It was an honor to do this. And a lot of people do that. And sure, it's great to do that, but you also want to add value in some way. And I think what I did that was I pulled some questions out of my keynote slide deck, and I put them into, repurposed them and put them into this post, and asked 4 questions in the post. And then shouting out, giving acknowledgement, that also goes a long way. There's also educational posts where you're, trying to share concrete lessons. So trying to take some content and like putting it into a list or some way to and tagging people wherever you can, but trying to make it easy for people to digest the content. It takes a little bit of work to do that, but if you're strong on the content creation side, it's pretty easy. Or you can repurpose other content that you already have. Maybe you have a book, you can pull stuff out of there, or other articles you've written. So I would say try not to write everything from scratch, but again, if you're trying to test something, LinkedIn is a great place for that. Promotional content, I try to keep this to like 10%. Obviously, when we did a crowdfunding campaign last year, there's certain moments now with the book, there's a lot of promotion going on. But again, try to give value. And if you know, Gary Vaynerchuk has this strategy from several years ago in marketing, which is called jab, 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 right hook. So you want to give as much as possible before you ask people to take some sort of action. So when you are if you are planning on running a campaign or doing some promotion, try to focus on giving value as much as possible. So for us, we were like, okay, well, when COVID happened, we made our design thinking toolkit, which we used to print out and give out at workshops and stuff. We're like, well, let's make it virtually optimized so people can fill it out on the PDF. And so we ended up and making it free for small businesses or just the public audience. And a lot of people really liked it. It didn't get a lot of, I would say like a ton of likes and stuff, but a lot of people ended up sharing and saying it was really helpful, and it led to a lot of other engagements. So I think that one's one of our most popular lead magnets, whatever you want to call it. And, it's still very value focused. It's not like, oh, buy my, you're not trying to sell something monetarily, but you can promote something that is, for marketing purposes, or especially if it's like a lead magnet of sorts. Behind the scenes, this is also really big. If you have authentic photos of yourself behind the scenes doing some kind of work, this actually does really well. It's kind of like what you would maybe put on Instagram, a little bit more professional. So this was when I was in Greece in 2019, and I was writing this book in the early stages and really struggling. And I talked about how hard it was. And it got a lot, you see 42 comments and 137 likes. I did really, really well. And I think it was a bit of the photo being a bit exotic with the content and the right set of factors hitting the sweet spot. But ultimately, people really like that. And I noticed that when you put photos out there that are pretty good photos, people will generally stand out more in the newsfeed than just, quotes and sort of written content, that sort of thing. So showing some of who you are behind the scenes is also a bit, exciting and juicy. People tend to like that. Posting content that's trending. So anything that's in the news. When this whole Black Lives Matter movement happened, I posted something. It's good to have a bit of news, stuff that's related to the news, any sort of like angles that you're interested in, or that's relevant in some way to you, or you just care about. Who are you? What do you care about? And there's a lot of interesting things happening in the news. So finding a way to share that can also show people that you're up to date with stuff. Storytelling, also really, really key. Having that hook at the beginning, especially, can be really important, because as you see, there's that see more part. So you want to capture people's attention early on. Surprisingly, this post also did really well. Maybe it's that same, that IPN tag that I had, and there's someone in there, who knows, but somehow those posts tend to go viral. But also did really well announcing that gig that I had in Orlando. So telling stories, starting with the crisis, generally is really catchy and will get people's attention. Also, you can have inspiring content. So sometimes, you might have quotes. I pulled quotes from my book. I have, different pieces that just might be for motivational purposes. That also does pretty well. But again, you want to diversify with the other types of posts as well. So we're going to go now more into the technical side of what makes an epic post. So, I think it's important to, first of all, have a really good idea, a really good topic. So you want to keep your post non-obvious, concrete, timely, and useful, and trying to find the right balance between those things. So how does what you're saying stand out? Why is it different? How can you make it digestible and easy to explain? Is it timely? Is it relevant to what's going on right now? Or how can you make it relevant? And is it useful for other people to take action or respond or comment on? Here's the story formula. So, there's, this is what I find that works after doing all that analysis and getting success. Is having that hook, having that catchy statement in that first part of the post, and then putting in your message that matters. Doing some research. Sometimes you can Google stuff, look at articles, recent articles, and put together something. You don't have to write everything from scratch or your own head. Again, you can get inspired or spin things. You want to insert 3 to 5 hashtags. Some people put in like 20. Don't do that. And review the checklist before posting to make sure you hit all those things. And something else that's also really important is how you space your post. So doing like a long form post, you want to make sure you don't have paragraphs, but keep it to a sentence, maximum 2 sentences per sort of line, and then leave it line of space. That works really well. Some people make it too crowded, and people don't click on that, or LinkedIn doesn't really promote it. Here's the checklist. You will have this later, but these are the different things that you can look at. One other thing I want to say is, if you're uploading videos, don't share like a YouTube or an external link. Upload the video natively so that it's manually uploaded. Otherwise, if you're trying to take people to YouTube or to another website, generally LinkedIn will penalize that, and they probably won't promote it very well. sometimes it goes viral, but usually it doesn't. So put the link, if there's an external link, put it into the comments. Using really high quality photos or videos, also really important. And yeah, there's all these different things. And if you are into emojis and you want to use those, be authentic and use them. They make things interesting. And then when you get, it's not just about posting, you want to be able to respond to people authentically and insightfully, and not just post a bunch of stuff and then leave your audience hanging. So yeah. You also want to post at the right time. Now, this I think was more relevant before the pandemic. I think now, especially if you're working globally, I don't think it matters as much. But if you are US based and your audience is mostly US based, for example, then those are the right times to post. In Eastern times, Eastern time zone, you want to post around 7:45, 8 o'clock. Another in the mid morning when people might be on a coffee break or something between calls. Lunchtime, and then just after work when they were like commuting or something, they might be scrolling through their LinkedIn. So again, it's a little bit different now with the pandemic, since we don't have commutes, we don't have as much going on, and so people might just, I would say, like most times are fine as long as it's during the awake hours of where your audience is. And there's other stuff here that's from other research that I found. B2B brands, best time to post Wednesdays followed by Tuesday, and then for B2C companies, Monday and Wednesday. I suggest using a content calendar if you don't have one, and it's a great way to organize the different platforms that you're posting on and how you would do LinkedIn differently. So, you can repurpose a lot of your content, but I would say scheduling it in advance. There's different tools you can use to schedule content, but LinkedIn, I find it's best to do it manually. Another social media, you can use, Hootsuite and all these different platforms, but I would say for LinkedIn, it's best to do it manually. You can use text formatting. You can use, you can get creative with the tags and stuff. It's a little bit buggy. So it's best to upload your posts manually with LinkedIn. Again, you want to move people from just followers to fans, to leads, to customers and collaborators. So the goal is to get into one-on-one conversations. So you want to move off of LinkedIn, send the Calendly, get people to go have a Zoom virtual coffee with you. You want to identify like, who are your 1,000 fans. I really believe in that 1,000 true fan theory. So don't try to go for, the 30,000 followers. You can build those, but you want to figure out who are your 1,000 true fans. And more importantly, who are your 100 super fans? Who are those 100 people that you could actually work with directly, especially if you are seeking clients and, you have a mastermind or you're doing one-on-one coaching. And you want to find a way to keep track of them on a Google Sheet, or bring them into your email newsletter, get them to subscribe, because what if LinkedIn dies one day, or, they change, and what are you going to do? So you want to make sure you future-proof yourself and find a way to have systems on the back end that you organize all this information. So some of you might be using a CRM. There's different things that you could be using, but you want to just find a way to leverage LinkedIn, but also future-proof yourself, and make sure you have back-end systems for that as well. And speaking of systems, I want to go into this really briefly, but essentially you want to have the systems for scale so that, your LinkedIn is used purposefully. You're not just engaging a bunch, but you're actually doing the steps you need to grow your business. So again, it's all about the systems and integrations, because LinkedIn is just a platform. There's these 6 T's, training, tools, templates, test, tweak, and team. I think all of these things are really important to have and how they work together. And I'll give some examples. So, and there's also these different AI LinkedIn tools. Some of you might know of some of these or might be using one. There's like Octopus, and there's a bunch of these different ones. It's become a lot harder to use AI tools because LinkedIn has a lot more restrictions since earlier this year, where you can only send, I think, 100 invites per week. But a lot of people took advantage before that happened, and they were able to grow their platform quite large because of the AI tools that were available. It's trickier now. LinkedIn is cracking down more, but a lot of businesses and individuals use these tools to grow if your goal is to grow your following. There's a lot of cloud-based tools as well that you want to use along with LinkedIn. So like we get creative with Drive, like when we want to provide a link to like a press kit or something, we might not just attach it, we'll use a link. Calendly is great, if you want to have virtual coffee. There's just all these different tools that our team uses, and that's how we've had a lot of success, is not just using LinkedIn, but making it work with our other tools that we use. The example that I'll share is that, for my book, I ended up, I didn't really have much of a platform, right? Like in 2019, I was just desperate to interview whoever was willing to have coffee with me, because I didn't really have access to a lot of influential people. And I wanted to learn from different leaders and entrepreneurs around the world, what they thought about innovation and what they thought about the future of work and the most important skills for the future of work. And so I ended up using LinkedIn and using a little bit of AI as well to target people based on certain keywords in different parts of the world, and try to figure out try to invite them to be part of this interview process. And whoever responded became part of, I would see their Calendly thing in my email, and I would end up seeing them join the interview on the calendar. So this was all before the pandemic mostly. And so it was interesting that a lot of my platform was built because of these relationships and the different tools that we use to get these interviews booked. So I could, interview people that were just genuinely interested in my book concept. I didn't know any of these people. Having the templates also is really key. So you want to have different message sequences built out, and this is all marketing, but you want to really have, things, you want to improve them over time. You want to have different, you want to A/B test some of this as well. You want to have these templates ready, especially if you have an assistant that's managing your LinkedIn inbox, if it's growing really big, or you just don't want to be the one managing all of it. You want to have all those things in place, like hi, first name, so-and-so, whatever your message is, and you want to have the follow-up, thank you note, whatever it is. You want to have all these templates in place. It goes a really long way to have that, so you're not manually coming up with the message on the spot each time. This is how we ended up, from the 100 interviews, this is how we ended up. I took all these notes, so everything was all connected. The whole process was like, LinkedIn message, Calendly, Zoom interview recording, and then, the notes, and then organizing everything. And then it went into a spreadsheet. And then I analyzed all of these different, future of work skills, self-awareness, empathy, et cetera, and it turned into my book. So it was all a really interesting process. Again, I wasn't alone in this process. I had an assistant that was helping me, and now we've grown from like 2 to 16 with Ripple Impact. But at the time, it was just me and a part-time virtual assistant in 2019 doing all this work. Now we have all these different, endorsements for the book, and it's grown quite a bit. But we created a lot of templates that now we can put out on social media. So this was actually my designer who's here visiting actually to help with the book launch. She put together these different, she's trying to do the Instagram layout so that it shows all the book blurbs. So we're like, well, these can also go out on LinkedIn. So having all these templates, planning the content in advance is really important. So you're not just like, what do I feel like posting about today? And boom, like a lot of people do that. I was doing that before as well, but you want to be strategic about how you're posting. Investing in your future self. So I think, a lot of people are like, well, this sounds all really overwhelming. I would say having a remote team, or having, a team like what we do at Ripple Impact, we help with a lot of the execution and helping a lot of this, back end side. But essentially you want to really, really think about where you want to be in the future, and how you can use LinkedIn to get there faster, and how you can also leverage other talent to help you get there faster. So you're not doing all the copywriting, or you're not doing all the posting and all the adding emojis, or, making it look good and whatever. You want to figure out what's most important that only you can do, and what can you delegate, what can you dump, what can you delay, and prioritize accordingly. This is actually just a screenshot from yesterday with my team, and we were, discussing our social media strategies, and we were trying to figure out how to make all this, the creative side work. And I think having a remote team, it's gotten easier today. Most of our employees are, well, some in the States, but a lot of them, especially the creative team in Colombia, we have some in Pakistan, we have some in Portugal, and different countries. So I think having, leveraging, especially if you can leverage emerging markets, if you can leverage different countries for different talent, depending on what kind of talent you're looking for, it's become easier now. People are home. So I would say highly, highly recommend having a team. So important to help you grow. So you focus on what you're good at. If you're not good at marketing, don't spend all your time on it. Focus on thought leadership and have other people take care. Like now I don't spend all my time doing all the LinkedIn myself. I approve posts. I make it a little bit more my voice. I just spend a little bit of time on it, but I don't do any of the creative stuff. I don't, a lot of the copywriting I get help with. So you want to try to find a way to optimize your time. It should not be an overwhelming process for you. Especially if you're an entrepreneur. So what's next is, I want you to go ahead and do your LinkedIn facelift, try to get testimonials if you don't have any yet. If you want to join a LinkedIn pod, I can share a link, or I can invite you to one, especially if you're a lady. There's a group with ladies I mentioned. There are some other ones that exist as well. You can apply for LinkedIn Live. They have a wait list, but you can apply and they might approve you. And then you can also check your social selling index. There's a link I put in there. So, so those are some, sort of things that you can do to keep this momentum going. And yeah, and my book that's launching, I mentioned earlier, Innovation Starts with I. We're currently in the process of packaging 500 books, signing books and stuff, but my book is available on Amazon. It's available for pre-order, the ebook, but it's also, I believe that paperback is published. You had to publish it in order to order these author copies, but the official release date is November 1st. So the best way to support me would be to read my book and let me know your thoughts. Sharing your review on Amazon or Goodreads would mean a lot to me. And that's where my focus is right now. So thank you so much. And I'm happy to take questions.
We do. We have a lot of questions, actually, not a lot, because we've been sort of chit-chatting during this time. One of the things that came up was if you have a LinkedIn profile and a business page, how do you manage that?
Really great question. I think business pages don't do as well unless you're posting a lot of really great content regularly, consistently. Video content sometimes does really well if you have a very niche audience and niche content. LinkedIn pages, the business pages can do really well, but for most people, they don't do as well. It's kind of like Facebook business pages. A lot of the business pages have died. So you know, they were good before. A lot of people will share stuff from their business page to their, you know, their personal profile posts and stuff. I would say try to figure out what's your strategy. Is the business page so important that you want people to go there? Because I personally don't put a lot of effort into it just because I know that LinkedIn prioritizes the personal profile. So if you are the face of your company, then prioritize your personal profile. It's good to have some filler content in there. It's good to have a business page for a presence, but unless you're heavily invested in creating success with the business page, then I would probably not put as much effort on that, and I would focus on your personal profile.
Yeah, I find the same. So what about creator mode? There was a question about whether or not people should do creator mode. Yes, no.
Yeah, so
what is it?
yeah, so creator mode, it's this newer thing where you can add you know, the content that you talk about. It's basically in your I can pull it up quickly, but on LinkedIn, and again, like I'm not the LinkedIn per se expert. I can tell you about my own journey and what I've experienced and how we've got success, but basically you can Google that, or you could figure out, like, yeah, it's just I'll share my screen quickly. But basically it's this area where you can turn it on if you want to turn on your creator mode, and you can put over here, basically it's part of this area, I believe, right here. And there's somewhere in this area that you can turn on creator mode, and you can add the hashtags, like the topics that you're you know, talking about, so people know. It's still like in a test mode. It doesn't really do a lot for you. One thing that is really interesting that you should, if you have not applied or didn't know about it, is the Creator Accelerator. LinkedIn, the deadline was October 12th, I believe, last week, but LinkedIn has a Creator Accelerator. They're just doing like 100 people right now. But if you are interested in being a LinkedIn creator and creating a lot of content and building community, they will be expanding their creator program, and you'll see more about that probably in 2022.
It's only in the US right now, actually, but there was a lot of talk about expanding to other places.
Awesome.
I do have more questions. Sorry, did you have more to add about that?
No, I prefer you can go ahead and curate and prioritize the questions, since I see there's a lot of them. So.
Well, here's one that's not really LinkedIn, but it's really kudos to your team. I said that we would do it later, but people keep asking, what's the best strategy to find online team? Upwork, similar platforms? How did you find all these amazing people?
Yeah, so honestly, I had different experiences with different virtual assistants. I've used Upwork. I actually used to work for Upwork, and I used to help people build remote teams back in 2013, 2014, 15. And then that all failed because people were doing the whole in-person thing at co-working spaces. And now it's become a big thing. So what I recommend, I mean, if you are a business owner and you're trying to build your team, like, I recommend having a conversation with me and seeing if you'd be a good fit for our accelerator, because we help entrepreneurs by being the team behind the scenes to these entrepreneurs, because we already have a team of talent and a lot of processes and systems in place and a lot of strategy. So we help our entrepreneurs basically by being their team behind the scenes so they can grow their own team by the end of the accelerator and hire their own folks, and they have the revenue to do so, because that's often a chicken and egg issue for many entrepreneurs, and they don't know, they might piecemeal and be like, oh, I'll hire like a freelance writer for this, I'll go to Fiverr for this, and it'll just be like a lot of pieces without a strategy. So I would say sitting down and figuring out like, what are the things. I have a matrix in my book, I think it's in the last chapter, on chapter 12, that talks about like how to prioritize based on what your skills are and what you need, and then figuring out what are the different pieces you need, because probably you need more than one person. A lot of people think they want a virtual assistant that will do all their marketing and all their creative work. Usually you end up with a jack of all trades situation. So you really want to figure out what are the pieces that you need, and how can you have these different roles? And if you need help on like actually finding them, there's lots of different platforms. There's lots of talent out there, especially if you're able to work with people around the world. There's, freelancing females. There's lots of Facebook groups where all these people are, these freelancers are. There's Upwork. There's different places. But I would say my advice would be, don't just get someone to do like a small thing for you. Try to bring someone that will not only be part of your vision, but grow it with you. Like with me and my assistant, we were, she was doing a lot of creative stuff. She was doing a lot of stuff. And she was a virtual assistant at the time, but now she's managing the whole business. And now she is better than me at hiring people. So yesterday she onboarded a new designer. Now we've grown our team significantly because she had that talent of being able to, especially being based in Colombia, she was able to grow a creative team over there that is now, our bigger team, but she was able to source talent, and she's just better at me than interviewing and all that stuff and finding people. So I would say, if you're not good at it yourself, try to have someone that can help you with that. And there's also some contractors and some people that might help you with that process as well. So yeah, that's another conversation we could have offline, because it really depends.
Yeah. It's interesting that is sort of become part of your business, because it's something that I think people struggle with a lot. I have one more, which is back to LinkedIn, which is, what exactly is an example of a call to action post?
Yeah, so a call to action is part of a post. So that's at the bottom of any sort of post that you have. You want to be able to put in something like, ask a question to your audience. You have your post, whatever, one of the 8 types of posts. You want to be like, well, what do you think of this? Or how are you doing this? And ask like a what, why, or how question. Not too complicated, something that people can easily respond to, that might generate a conversation in the comments. And Diana, I know you're very good at that too, because I get a lot of, your engagement as well in my newsfeed. And so trying to, have some sort of question at the end, and, drop your comments, feel free to share your comments below, having something. So it's not just like you're just sharing content, but there's an action you want people to take, or, learn more about this event by registering at the link in the comments, something like this. And then you drop the link in the comments, and that's the call to action. There's also the calls to action on your profile. And the ones I mentioned there was like, in your about section, the best call to action you want to have is at the bottom of your about section, putting in, like, as you saw, I have, for speaking requests or podcasts, go to this link. You can also have a call to action in your, like I have one for pre-ordering my book. If people want a signed copy, I put the URL into my banner. So those are examples.
Yeah, I feel like you have just condensed 3 hours of content. Thank you very much into 1 hour. I really appreciate that. And I think that a lot of the other folks appreciated it too. One question I have is, will we have your slides? Because there's a lot of like links and stuff in there. Or I know that we recorded this. So for everybody who's going, oh my God, I have to go actually like listen to that like 3 more times. We will definitely have that. And maybe, we can either get some of your slides, or you and I can get some of the links, and I'll put that in the replay email. So you guys, all who registered, will get a replay email with links to Saleema's book, with links to the website, and maybe with some of the other links that you mentioned. Does that seem like a good option?
Yeah, so like I said, this is my first time basically we actually have a course on Thinkific, but I don't really market it very much because it's for entrepreneurs in the accelerator. So basically, yeah, I gave you a whole course within an hour. So all this stuff is set up in Thinkific or Kajabi, whatever platform. I think it's in Kajabi right now, but yeah, like basically it's all in the course. So there's all these, like, I don't know, we have some like PDFs and some tools as well in there. So I guess I gave you all the content right now, and you can do stuff with it. But if you want like tools and stuff, there's the actual course. Or if you want to work together in some way, then you'll get all these extra tools and stuff. But I would say watching the replay, like you have a lot that I just gave you that you can implement just watching the replay.
Absolutely. I think that's great. And we will put links to, I put some links into the chat already, but we will also put those in the replay so that you guys can make sure you can see Ripple Impact. You can see Saleema on LinkedIn. If you haven't already gone to her, I put her LinkedIn profile because some of the questions were about style. And I said, just go look at her profile. That's a good answer to the question. But thank you guys all for an amazing session, great questions, wide ranging. I am hoping from the bottom of my heart, and I think Saleema is too, that you take this and you use it to leverage to make even more impact in the world and fulfill your passion and your potential. So I really appreciate your time. And thank you, Saleema. This was fantastic. You're amazing.
Thank you. I'm
Can't
just trying to
wait.
help as much as I can because I know it can go a long way if you do this early on. So yeah, good luck everyone, and feel free to, add me on LinkedIn and follow, or, ping me if you have any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. See you at the next month's masterclass or on the Future Proof Lab. Thanks to all my Future Proof insiders in the tribe. It's so nice to see you guys, and I'll see you again soon.